Recording start कर दीजिए. Hi Chibu, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Done.
thank you. Deepak, over.
Okay, it's a great evening. We are all here to listen to Dr. Alok Bajpai on an interesting topic, which is not only interesting for psychologists, but anyone who is interested in human mind and behavior. I would like to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Alok Bajpai is an eminent psychiatrist. He, after his medical graduation, got his training from NIMHANS, Bengaluru, the Apex Institute of Mental Health in India. He completed his DPM and MD between 1990 and 96. After his training, he worked and is currently working with several organizations. Just to name few, Regency Hospital, Kanpur is the first, and then he went on to work in several organizations in India and abroad. To name one, he worked with Southwest Healthcare, Victoria, Australia, and currently he's with IIT Kanpur. His areas of interest is wide. Just to mention few, general psychiatry, child and adolescent mental health. He's also a man of action who kind of established a unique child and adolescent mental care center in Kanpur. He has also published in big journals like Nature, along with his team. He has diverse interests other than mental health, initiatives for peace and cinema. He's an ardent follower of Gandhian philosophy. He has published books on Gandhi, which is by Kautilya Publications, a critical analysis of Mahatma Gandhi's life. Gandhi for him is the tool to improve life skills, and he explores with ideas for development of youth. Maya is reality, how the brain creates it. It's another book from the perspective of neuroscience. He also runs MOOC courses on NPTEL and SWAYAM platforms on various topics from Buddha to brain physics, just to name few: cognition, transformation, and lives, how the brain creates mind, psychiatry and overview. Apart from this, he's also working with Dalai Lama and the organizations connected to him in various parts of the India and other country on universal ethics, and also training in life skills, especially a process of critical thinking, which is primarily focused on youth, how to help them evolve their own identities and ideologies through various workshops. And the CV is quite long. You can check for yourself. There's a blog and online platforms for you to know more. But just for this brief intro, this much is enough, I believe. And I'll now request the Dean of JSPC, Professor Dr. Derek Linguist, to say a few words. Welcome you all before the talk.
Great, thank you, Deepak. And good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're real fortunate today to have Dr. Alok with us. As I said just a moment ago, I'm really looking forward to this talk. As many of you probably know, in psychology and psychiatry, right, there's this been decade-long, perhaps century-long debate, you know, emotion versus cognition or reason. And I think for a lot of us now, it really looks like a bit of a misnomer, right? It's kind of like the nature-nurture debate. And so it's not a question of either one. But that said, I don't want to, you know, take away from where Dr. Alok is going. So again, I think whether you're a researcher doing applied or actually working with patients, I think the topic today is something that will certainly be of interest to all psychologists and anybody that really has an interest in the sort of mental interior, both our emotions and our cognition. So we're fortunate to have you, sir. And with that, I will turn it over. Thank you.
I request Dr. Alok Bajpai to deliver his talk.
Thank you.
Students, at any point of time, he's very much happy to take your questions. Kindly be brief and sensible. Thank you very much.
No, they are sensible. Brief, I don't know. But yeah, once again, I'm requesting, come out of your black holes, put on your videos, keep your mic silent. If you are not groggy and you're alert and all, please. All you students who are there.
The everlasting challenge of professors in university.
Anyway, I normally love to interact with the minimal number of slides, but then I think the issue which we are going to discuss will require some slides. So nevertheless, I'll have some of them, keep jumping here and there. And please feel free to, don't wait for the question at the end. Just raise your hand or unmute and ask me so that it can be a more interactive session rather than a monologue. All right, does it sound okay? Yeah, wonderful. So when Deepak told me to, I've been teaching a lot of neuroscience for last couple of years. Recently, I was in IIT Goa doing this 15-hour course on a journey into the mind and behavior. But so there are people of different groups who want to study neuroscience in the sense of pure engineering, understanding of anatomy and imaging and all. And there are people from at the other end who just want to understand behavior. But somewhere midway lies the truth. Not the absolute truth, but the truth as we understand it today from various perspectives. So let's roll on. One second. I think I can share the screen. Can you see the screen? Slideshow or something? No, not yet. It is giving me some strange options. How many participants can share one, or whatever. Okay. Is something visible? Yeah. Okay.
It's visible now.
All right. All right. So let's start from the point where everybody goes back when you're trying to really look at where did it all start. So somewhere along the line, and if you believe evolution, there was a fork where we separated from our nearest cousins, the chimpanzees, and we're still debating. This question often comes up in all evolutionary classes and all neuroscience classes. What makes us different from the animals? And that has a basic assumption that we are different from the animals. But if you look at it and in a moment of contemplation and forget that you are different and all that, you'll find that animals also share a lot of stuff what we know. They are aware of the environment. They have motor action. They have a lot of sense, everything which is sensory. And obviously they follow the natural cycle of sleep and the circadian rhythms and the hormonal secretion, and also their estrus cycles, reproductive cycles. The animals which are on 4 and we who are on the 2, obviously our hands got free and we were free to do a lot of multitasking, and with the evolution of thumb and this pincer capability. So a lot of stuff, if you broadly look at it and just for a minute imagine the capacities of various animals. We do not have the power of the tiger's claw or paw or hand, or can just kill you with this force. We can't fly like birds. We can't smell like dogs. We can't hear beyond a certain frequency. But all these capacities probably, which were limited in us, gave a great fillip to our evolution of our brain. So still, what we cannot do, we tend to imagine that. And of course, all those imaginations are turning into technology, right from aeroplane to these days of AI, where we are trying to put chips into the head and get the EEG signal and put in data in the head. So obviously technology makes us different. Animals use twigs. We use our Bofor's guns and whatnot. But still, does it answer the question? Does it answer that what is different in us? I think for this, we have to not look outside, but just look at ourselves. So this is my brother, our brother. This chimp is found in Assam jungles. And this is me, if wherever I'm coming from. So awareness we share, but I think what makes us different from animals is this. If I can make a slideshow. Wait. I'll have a pointer also, hopefully. Okay. We are self-referential. All human beings who can think are self-referential. The world means to us whatever it means to us here. Because if this is not working, anybody tells you anything, it doesn't mean. It may be anything outside. And there is a certain unity within ourselves and between ourselves. We are also self-reflective. And in the process, we have developed an intent. But I think the biggest difference, as long as we can decipher what animals are thinking, we don't know their language yet. But I wonder whether animals are trying to give meaning to their life. They are happy with the nature. When you're hungry, go hunt, eat. When you're thirsty, go drink. You want to reproduce, have physical contact with the opposite sex, go have it, move on. Sleep rest of the time. Wander in the jungle. They don't go to school. They don't bother to have a seminar on mental health. And they don't declare Mental Health Day and World Suicide Prevention Day and all that. Obviously, they are free from all this. But why are we doing it? At some point of time in our evolution, there were some species who were not trying to do this. I'm sure Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons and Australopithecus did not have schools. It would be very sad if they had schools, actually. But Homo sapiens, yeah, we have all this, universities and research and Nobel Prize, of course, and whatnot. But what is all this? Probably we are the only species which are trying to give meaning to ourselves, meaning to our existence, and obviously assisted by language. That makes us different from animals. The capacities of body and senses and all can be easily calibrated with technology and all. So what we have been doing for all these years, for millions of years, and as language develops, is we are creating meaning through symbols in the brain, metaphors which we use in our daily life. All religion, mythology, society is just about, if at a very, very reductionist level, is about conditioning of the brain. It's just a memory of patterns. If one is born and not told what is happening in the society, obviously one's mind would not be conditioned. But all this stuff is there, whether you want it or you don't want it, because there is obviously a very, very deeper ahistorical, I would say, because you can't date them, component in our brain, which is coming from the past. You can't really go and place it, depending on what culture you are born in, Greek mythology, Indian mythology, Egyptian. At one level, there are stories and narratives which are coming to us. But we really stop to think, what is the affective component of it? Whether all this stuff is really at some point starts affecting you emotionally. That is one question. So we have this cognitive, historical, factual load which is coming to us and possibly affective. Language, obviously. Language is one thing which has given a big boost. How? We can express. We can talk about what we are thinking. We can create theories and knowledge and philosophy and epics and cinema and everything. But language also plays it the other way around. For example, a very simple thing. If there's a child, you tell the child what failing means. You've told the child, failing means this, don't fail. This child may not have had a concept of failing before that moment. But by our verbal explanations or by our reactions to the events which appear as failure, we induce this anxiety or induce a concept in the head. So next time the child is trying to do something, it will start thinking whether I'll fail or not. If you don't tell your students that there is an examination, someday you just call them, ask them, talk them, and give them marks, I think all of them will perform well. Moment you tell them there is an exam means failing and anxiety and all that, layers and layers of life. So language works both ways. It can allow you to express and it can allow you to get yourself impressed. So our torments are simple. Who are we? Why are we here? What is the meaning? Why do people do what they do? And when I'm asking this question, I'm referring to Derek, what he was saying, that this categorization of emotion and reason is like nature-nurture debate. Nobody knows what you're talking about. But right from our Vedas to neuroscience, there were cognitive labs. You all have heard of cognitive neuroscience. So the new labs are called cognitive affective labs. To AI, to every other thing which is happening in our life, maybe we are living in a simulation or AI or what Elon Musk is trying to put a neural link into the head. It's all to answer these questions. We have still, I think, partly answered, or maybe it's just an illusion that we have answered. But has it solved anything? Because if it would have, we would be out of business. But neither psychologists, nor psychiatrists, nor the gurus, nobody is out of business. So obviously something else is happening then. Either we're missing out something or we have. So when we talk about brain, we'll come to this important point. Okay. So if you broadly look at it, this is my favorite graphic which I made. We are living in a world wide web. Oh, has something disappeared? Are you able to see my screen? Yes, no?
No, sir.
No. Wait, something
No,
has
sir.
happened.
It's not.
Everything
visible.
seems to have disappeared. Wait, let me come back. Where did it go? But now?
Yes, sir.
All right, wonderful.
Now, okay, sir. It's
Yeah. So this is my
visible.
favorite graphic. It explains a lot of things to me, at least. I think if we are living in a, say, World Wide Web, which we all know, we use it day in and day out. And so this is a big world outside, and we are in it or out of it or whatever. We are living with a brain, body, query, mind. So the interface of the world with our head, with our brain, is that real in first place? It doesn't seem to be, actually. If I'll tell you how the brain works, then maybe you'll understand what it is all about. And when I was writing my book on brain dynamics, that is why I labeled it as Maya is reality. Maya, is the famous word from Shankaracharya called illusion. Even when it comes to mind, there are two schools. One believes that mind is a creation of brain. It's an emergent phenomenon out of the brain, and there's nothing called mind. And it's just an information processing system. And the whole computational neuroscience is based on that. And the other group of people believe that obviously there is a mind, but it is a result of brain activity. And obviously there's a third group which stays on the border of metaphysics and spirituality, which tends to believe that mind is something separate from the structure called brain in the head. So whether it is embodied or is it disembodied is still one of the big questions. Suppose I ask you all, suppose just hypothetically think, if you are left in a place like desert, for example, and you don't have any gadgets, you have your food to eat, and there is no human contact, maybe for a couple of days. So what would you do normally? What would your mind do? Any idea? Any of you young people? You all are living with gadgets, so you never know this state of mind. There are no
Maybe
gadgets.
it would create stimulations for itself to put
Yes.
itself engaged.
Right. And you're bored of that also after one day.
Well, if there's no option, that's that, right?
It's yeah, a lot of bad things. No, but just guess, what would you do? You're lying in the night in a desert, you have eaten your food, nothing to do, you don't know when you will get out. There is a moon, blue light. Yeah, it sounds very romantic out of Yash Chopra film. But yeah, I mean, that is not a Yash Chopra film, you're stuck there. And your mind is still active, is well fed. So what is the next thing mind does?
Talk to oneself.
Right. You know what? What would one be doing is what our ancestors were doing. We would all be weaving stories. That is what you are doing. Actually, if you look at your mind, and if you can create that small little gap where you can watch what is happening in your head, we are actually making stories all the time. All the time. We get all these sensations. The brain is processing. It has to create some memory, compares with the memory, and it creates stories. So we actually live in our stories. And I mean, this starts right from birth. Man, I think, is a social being, is not a sociological statement. This statement I've started believing over time that this is a biological statement. Because people are afraid of death, but people are more afraid of being left alone. What in your SMS language we all call FOMO. It's like fear of missing out. So that loneliness is still one of the biggest triggers and the biggest troublesome, sad state. Because our developmental history, when we are born, our brain is made of 10 to the power 11 neurons, which are not arranged linearly. They are arranged in complex networks. But these networks are formed with our experience, which comes to us from the outside world after your birth. So early childhood experiences become very important for people. And it becomes more so important because human infant, all of us are premature in that sense. All other animals are born and they immediately resume activities within a couple of days because they are born full term. The problem in evolution was that if human infant is born, it would require 18 months in the womb. 18 months in the womb, the woman would not be able to walk. She would waddle. That nature did not want. They said to cut down 9 months. So we all are born hapless, helpless, dependent, and neurons are in place, those 10 to the power 11 neurons, but they still haven't formed the important networks. Whatever goes into our head right from within the womb till about 16, 17, 18 years is forming your network. And that is the basis of what you call yourself. Every experience. Some of them overgrow, then they're pruned and all that drama keeps going. And there are critical periods in growth. Why I'm telling you this, that once you understand this backdrop, then our emotion versus reason will become very easy to understand. And in this period, what do you learn? You learn schooling, you learn how to handle emotions, how to express emotions. In the first few years of life, we are allowed to be emotional. But imagine in your second year of life, the way you wanted something and you can cry. If you start crying at your university like this, tomorrow you go to your class and start crying like a 2-year-old kid. What will happen? Anybody? Anybody cried in the classroom to the professor? No. What? You kids don't experiment these days, huh? We used to cry a lot. Cry, there's nothing wrong. So any idea if any of you goes and behaves like the way you were behaving at 2 years of age with your mom, what will be the next step? What? All students gone.
Professor, I think we will be judged in class probably.
Yeah, if you're crying slowly, the professor will explain to you. If you start howling, they'll take you to the nearest psychiatry hospital. And everybody around you will be jumping and everybody will be saying something is going to happen. She may commit suicide, do this, X, Y, Z. So between those 2 years to 22 years, see what has happened. At 2 years of age, if you're doing this, people will accept it. Okay, it's a kid, they will do it. So what I'm saying that all these things are, we never realize, but whatever we have done while growing up and what people have done, all that is interactive to make you what you are. So all this is biological conditioning, and conditioning is nothing but patterns of firing in the brain. When I was saying FOMO, and see, it is so important because what is also important that I told you about the stories. But these stories are not isolated in a certain area of brain. They have put the whole brain to work. I call them Gandhi neurons. There are something called mirror neurons in the brain. So if my face is sad, and even if I don't tell you, your mind will read it. And all those things which make you sad will also get activated. That's what humor does. When people laugh, the other people, sometimes it's infectious. When people are angry, the other people also start getting angry or react in a different. So just by seeing, so there are mirror neurons which enable us to understand the mind of the other person. What we call commonly as theory of mind. But in fact, this is purely biological. It's not something which is an illusory theory or something. It is purely biological in the sense that it is actually happening. And we do it in labs. These days we have started picking up what we call EEG from the electrical activity of the brain, transmit that data, and if the monkey is trying to pull a banana, a robot sitting in Tokyo can also try to do that. But that is very, very material stuff. We are transmitting data and do it. But without data also, sometimes try to feel. This is the basis of what we commonly know as empathy. Otherwise, nobody would be able to put oneself in the shoe of the other person. Why we call it Gandhi? Because Gandhi in his life became a master of it. He trained his mind towards that empathy. So this is our natural state actually. And this is just a picture of what is happening in the brain. 10 to the power 11 neurons, about 3 millimeters of cortex. This is how cells are arranged. And all these cells are electrically active and they connect to each other not in continuity, but they always have a gap between themselves. So electric current in the basis, electric current comes here by excitement, and this gap is covered by chemicals, neurotransmitters. You would have read about it, but sometimes we can have more serious lecture on this. So brain is electrochemically activated, electrical activity all over, and chemical neurotransmitters control it. regulate or monitor or modulate the activity. This, if you look at 3 words, default mode networks, when your brain is resting, the brain is still active. When you're given a task and decision making has to happen, there's something called central executive networks, which is in this part of the brain gets activated. And this is the decision making. And these are various areas of brain. You can see dots which can pick up, extract the future of whatever has gone into your head. I mean, this is not so important, just for. Okay. One more important thing before we move on to our topic. You should remember this person's name. His name is Donald Hebb. He was one of those pioneers who really gave a model of the brain. And he told a very famous sentence. He said that neurons that fire together, they wire together. Means, while learning, if there are, say, 10 neurons which have taken a picture like, okay, let me give you an example, but you'll all have to tell me. Huh? I'm just speaking a word. Whatever comes to your head, please tell me. Okay? Rose. Some of you tell me what came to your head. Huh?
Fragrance.
Fragrance, yes.
Red.
Red. What else?
Petals.
Petals.
Green. Thorns.
Thorns.
Leaves.
Ah, very good. Nothing else. You're very, very reductionist kids.
Love. Duty.
Love. Wow.
Beauty.
Yes. Beauty. Broken love. Crushed petals. Okay. Doesn't matter. So can you see what all came out? A very, very, I just spoke. Nobody saw the spelling of rose. I spoke it, na, rose. Could you see ROSE in your head?
I saw a picture in my head.
You saw a picture in it. That's all right. There's no right or wrong in it. Now just look at the magic. This is the magic. I spoke a word called rose. It's set in the air, went to the mic, the electrical signals went. What you heard was again converted to a word called rose. The word rose may have triggered off certain images, ROSE, which is a pattern, alphabet as we know, but it also triggered off colors. It triggered off your personal feelings maybe. It triggered off your smell. Do you think everything concerned to rose is put it in a pigeonhole in our head? Any possibility of this? Obviously not. Well, otherwise, how many pigeonholes you will have? For your mother, father, grandmother, your favorite actors, this, that. You can't have 10 neurons representing rose. Everything concerning rose will be in this. It doesn't happen. So this whole information is scattered in your brain. But just the trigger of this word called rose brought out memories of color, fragrance, conceptual emotion, love, thorn. And I'm sure thorn would have been, nobody bothers about a thorn in rose unless thorn is really pricked you somewhere. That memory. So all this memory of rose is scattered in the brain. But just one trigger would connect all of them. So this is what Donald Hebb was saying. All the neurons which have gathered this memory of word called rose and whatever else in your life, and all these memories you wouldn't have gathered at one point of time. You would have gathered it at maybe a decade, 10, 15 years, whatever. So brain retains all this. And they are just maps and maps of neurons which hold all information, ready to fire, ready to bring back all that memory when there is a suitable trigger. So what in fact the brain is doing? It is learning all the time. And learning how? By experience. But when people talk of experience, they talk of memories. the personal memories, the anecdotal, episodic, what you have learned to do, Titanus 2. But we rarely stop to talk about what is the emotional component of this memory. In fact, whatever your visual and verbal memory is retained in the head, or the memory of movement or anything, the emotional memory is also present in equal amount, equal weightage, if not more, in the brain. So often it happens that you experience something when you're say 35, 40 or whatever age, 23 or whatever, and it triggers off some memory which you would had in the childhood. This happens. This is because the way brain is functioning. So what a brain does is it pays attention to something. There is an information collection. The brain processes all this information to represent the world around you. It is appetitive in the sense that it will try to explore everything and have everything. And repetitive also. If you're doing something and your brain gives you a reward, this reward is an emotion, then you will repeat it again. But if you have a discomfort, it appears like a punishment, you will avoid it. Why? Because the purpose of the brain is just a predictive machine. Brain has to take this information, whatever extra information it has, it doesn't want to get caught in surprise, because it has to make you survive. So every decision which brain makes is to survive, number one, and to anticipate the next instance, and then next, and then next. The whole sole purpose of brain is to make you survive. And that is why it does not like ambiguity or uncertainty. Although there is a lot of uncertainty around, but brain wants to be sure. In this process, brain has developed all things of categorization, of labeling and concepts, and keep predicting. But life is not so simple. Why does it happen every time?
So we lost the slide
Now. Yeah, technology can be pretty nasty at times. Trust me, it's doing on its own. Huh? Okay. So with the brain thinks that it is doing all these things in a wonderful way, and it can think and decide and predict and categorize. But that is not the whole truth. You see this lightning, and you see this. What does this face represent? What does it mean to you?
Happiness.
Happiness. And happiness is what? A thought, emotion?
Emotion.
So that is why I put it this lightning-like thing. All this, what I have written, it may appear as a lot of thought and rationality and objectivity is there, but emotions appear as lightning. And we all know this. So brain has a hierarchical model. There are a lot of things going on. Different areas of brain are doing different things. The hearing area will be interpreting sound, the vision will be interpreting vision, motor movement from a different area, but all this is integrated to give you a sense of self. And there are feedbacks. Whatever you do, the environment gives you a feedback, which you take it into a higher scale of meaning. And through memory, mirror neurons, all that stuff is going on. So what do you think of self is all the time a mixture of conscious experience and a non-conscious process. And when I'm saying this, we experience things laid down in a short period of time, the extended present. It simply means what you think of past and what you think of future, events are happening and going off. So this is the whole story. This is They are events only. Forget about whether we are living in time or not. They are events which brain has somehow learned to define in time brackets. So between 10 milliseconds, when you see something, if you receive that signal less than 10 milliseconds, you will not be able to make out sense out of it. But if you receive it more split out in 100 milliseconds, even then you will not be able to make out a sense. Because if you see a face of a lion approaching you, and you just see it for 10 milliseconds, you will not know whether this is a lion or a tiger or dangerous animal. But if the same signal is spread out in 100 milliseconds, the whole face will become fragmented. Even then you will not know what is happening. So brain has devices between 30 milliseconds to 100 milliseconds. So what happens? From bottom up, integrated sensory experience. You are seeing, you are smelling, you are hearing, you're feeling pressure on your body, your joints, everything goes into the deeper part of the brain. This is all unconscious. It's not, you are not aware of it. The whole thing is integrated. You pay attention to some certain things, and with this attention, once you pay attention to it, this integrated sensory experience, even before you become aware of it, it is compared with memory. The brain always compares with memory whether this thing is dangerous. And why does it do it? Because the whole purpose of the brain is your survival. So if you're seeing something, brain will compare whether I know that this is dangerous or not. And once it is compared with memory, and this memory is not necessarily a visual or verbal memory, it could be an emotional memory also. So by the time you come to 400 to 500 milliseconds, whatever has gone into your head, and even if you stop everything, if you stop all senses, your brain would still be creating something because it has memory. From memory, it will be creating. So this external and internal thing will combine together. They are laced with emotion. And then by 500 milliseconds, this frame of reality comes to your head. There may be many frame of realities, out of which your central executive network will choose one course of action. You will act or not act or emote. Environment will give you a feedback, which will again go through this sense. This loop continues all our life. These feedbacks. So what we really know is those 500 milliseconds. Rest of the brain is creating a story. So brain's habit of categorizing is to be certain to pass information, as I told you. But the fact of the matter, as we understand brain, is that what we call unconscious is huge. And it's not huge in size. It is huge in time. From the moment you see to the moment you become aware and you are able to decide about will and all that, whether you want to do something, whether you don't want to do something, it is 500 milliseconds. And then another 500 milliseconds. And then, so we are actually living in this small brackets of reality. So that's what I was telling, whether reality is something real or it's just an illusion, we really don't know. And to complicate it, we have two parts of the brain. Okay. We have had experiments where we have paralyzed. There were people who had this connection. There's something called corpus callosum, which unites two half of the brain like this. It was damaged. And they were presented with one simple question of your goals in life. Trust me, the left brain was giving something else and the right brain was giving some other answer. So with these experiments, but by putting anesthesia on one side and a lot of experimentations, we understand that actually two selves living in us. But by the time they present to your conscious mind, it is one. Because what is not required in the brain is inhibited. What you become aware is about what makes you survive in the world. And mental illnesses, especially something called psychosis, where the mind loses touch with reality, that is one of the criteria of it, has this in underlying, that something which has to be inhibited in the brain comes in front. Like for example, somebody who has schizophrenia may have a hallucination, and hallucinations can arise without a stimulus and with the stimulus. Like there's a butter knife kept and this person suddenly sees a sword out of it, or maybe if starts feeling that it is kept here pointing out at me. Now this thought may be natural for a lot of people because you are self-referential, but your brain would not even allow you to know this. It will already inhibit this thought because it's not in touch with reality. But when this connections break, then people start acting out. And that is the source of mental illnesses. Now, when we're talking about all this, what is the purpose?
So
After
there's a
this-
question
Yes,
in the
yes,
chat
please.
box.
Yes, please.
Are you familiar with Benjamin Libet's temporal antedating hypothesis?
See the slide, please. This is about Libet's. Am I right?
Yeah, I just asked the question and you're right. I can see that's exactly where you're going.
Yes, yes. I'm just coming to this. And this is Stanislas Dehaene, who has worked in a lot in learning, right? So these days, this whole thing, whether it's a conscious learning or whether it's this unconscious process of learning. So this is Libet's experiment actually. But you know, sir, that as you know, and a lot of other kids may know, so that puts the big question that if the decision by the brain has been taken by 200 milliseconds before that, and we become aware after around 500 milliseconds, what does it mean? Does it mean that there is no will? That is all deterministic. The brain has already decided. We just have to act out. Yes, there is a school which believes like this. There is a school which believes. But I think that whole thing of determination and deterministic will or is left to choosing probabilities. We were trying to work a model and we are still working on it with a couple of IIT people. So this is what we understand per se now. That there are internal states of the brain. Without any external output, still, even if you stop your 5 senses, you are still receiving inputs from your body, which may be amounting to 2000 stimulus per second. From your gut, from your joint, from your skin, from everything which is involuntary. So there is an internal state in the brain. And then there is an external signal. Suppose there is external signal. So we call this I, we call this E. And this external signal in the thalamus, which is a deeper coordination center of the brain, is a weighted signal. There is a sound, there is a vision, there is a smell, there is a lot of other things. Depending on which signal, which modality is more intense or has a more weightage, they are laced with memory and emotion. And in 500 milliseconds, all this internal, external memory, emotion present a frame of reality. Our brain, through this probability, Bayesian or Markovian, we still don't know. Maybe Bayesian when it decides, Markovian when it's dealing with the... so it can only choose between the probabilities. This is our will. And we act and there's a... Why does it happen every time? My God. Slides gone again.
Yes, sir.
Something funny happens. Okay. So brain has will, is a partial will. Absolute free will, I think, is a myth. According to what we know of neuroscience, there may be a possibility of the brain deciding between the probabilities, but that also is determined on the hierarchy of threat and damage it can cause and all that. So anyway, we'll skip this. Okay. So it all appears very, very deterministic till now. And in fact, you all would have read Daniel Kahneman's System 1 and System 2. So when Daniel Kahneman talks about all this, he is actually talking that there is a reflex action in the brain. We all know. And there is a slow process thinking. If you suddenly touch fire, your hand will be pulled back even before you have realized. You don't get time to think because over millennia, brain has learned that fire is dangerous. It's not waiting for you to decide. But when you're comfortable, you can listen to this talk or can do mathematics or psychology or whatever you want. That is a system 2 thinking. So that means there's a part of decision making which the brain is doing based on reflex, on the threat level, on making you secure. And on the other hand, brain has a lot of time to think about your choice of food. You want to eat Chinese, you want to order this or that. So that brings us to the basic question of whether it's emotion or reason. Neuroscience, as I told you, what we think that we are rational, we are actually what Freud used to say, that we are rationalizing. We do act and then we rationalize, build a story beyond that. We understand that even our most rational thoughts are still laced with emotion. So all success of people for a 100-meter sprinter to win the race, or for Gandhi to walk 360 kilometers at 61 years of age, cannot happen unless there is an emotional push to it. So a lot of what appears as a rational motivation is actually emotional motivation. And that whole understanding of the brain, which said that there is a limbic system, there is an amygdala, and limbic system acts, the whole brain is acting all the time. Because there are part of the brain which put our emotion into the social situation. So there is the same area of brain. On one side, it takes a decision, which is a total rational decision. And on the other side, from the same area, your emotional level and its placement in the social context is happening. So now we know that every small thing is also not necessarily happening with your thought only, but it may be. Am I audible? There's some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Right. So now let's go deep into this debate. Now, you got some.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes, please.
Don't
Yes.
you think emotional decisions can't be rational?
Oh yes. I'll come to this. I'll come to
Yeah.
this. We'll just pick it up from what you said. Just see this slide. Can you? These are not necessarily a list of words. They're just 6 words. Okay. Can you make pairs? These are all concepts. Huh? Escape, fight is a reaction. Can you make pairs? Anybody?
Pairs of the words.
Yes, yes. Make 3 pairs. Anything. Wild guess.
Danger, acceptance.
We got a response in the chat: escape or
Yes.
fight, and danger.
Escape, fight, danger. Okay.
Exploration and attraction,
Okay.
loss, acceptance,
Wonderful. Okay. So broadly, let's take
loss, attraction. Yeah.
it. Loss, attraction, or acceptance?
There's one loss equal to attraction.
Okay. Okay. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'll tell you why. Okay. Do you think when we are matching, suppose we are in this situation, what do you feel? The emotion is coming from deep. You are feeling it when it reaches your head after some time. Okay, I'll tell you what. So underlying all this pair are these: danger, escape, there is fear; exploration and attraction, there is joy; and loss and acceptance is grief. Now, this is the power of emotions, which you may not be aware, we don't talk about, but they are actually determining. So what you were asking about, emotional decisions can be rational or not. Am I right? Who asked that?
Oh, I was saying they could be rational.
Yes. No, no, all things which we think are rational are already emotional. So maybe this
Yeah.
slide, this slide will explain something. So if you, this is emotion, cognition, I take it as abstraction, judgment, insight, and all that stuff. So when there is a cognition reduction and emotional exaggeration, can happen both. Both can affect each other actually. Okay, there can be a bottom-up effect from emotion to cognition, and cognition can alter emotion. Sometimes when you're feeling like crying, you can still stop yourself. There are occasions when you're feeling angry, but you don't go and hit the policeman. You may be wanting to slap the traffic wala, but you don't do that. Maybe you want to shout at somebody, but still you don't. So cognition, that means the choosing of that probability of not responding. Like Gandhi trained himself in being non-violent by training. He had a lot of rage, but every surge of violence or rage, he used to posit it with non-violence. And gradually his mind stopped. So all the peaks and spikes of violence came down. That is a source of emotional regulation. That is the source. So if there is a cognitive reduction, there is an increase in emotion. Right? Emotional exaggeration decreases, you can think more. Emotional regulation increases cognition. Emotional regulation decreases emotion. So what is the big talk about these emotions? So this may give you answer. Rationality and emotions are not two subsystems. Trust me. What we call a limbic system is entwined in thought creation. There was in hypothalamus, which is the area which governs your sleep and thirst and sexuality and all that. There is the same set of neurons. If excited by a certain frequency, they help in mating. If excited by a different frequency, they help in fighting. The brain has its own economics. So just remember this sentence. I'll just show you two more slides and then we'll chat. Okay. Does any of you have phobias? Or you know what phobia is? Fear? No, you're all fearless people. Any idea?
I'll say for myself, I don't, doesn't rise to the level of a phobia, but I don't really enjoy compressed tight spaces.
Yes. Yeah, so all of us have it. Some of us, I had, one of my legs is polio affected and I started walking pretty late. I remember when I was a child, I was morbidly afraid of the staircases going down, which we used to have a very slippery slope. As a child, I remember I just would not, either I would sit down and get down. And when I grew up, I thought, what is this? But then probably I realized that maybe I would have slipped multiple times. I still slipped. 2017, I had a fracture. Now I walk, I tend to forget that it is slippery. People remind me, boss, please hold on. Where does this fear come from? Fear does not really come from that pain and the fall. That fear of the fall. So that's how people develop phobias. Somebody goes to within a lift, sometimes you can feel claustrophobia comes from sudden panic attack in the lift, and people will just go crazy. They wouldn't climb people don't go on flights for ages. Why? Ask them. They have no rationale. They think I'll have a panic attack. You ask them, you will not die with panic attack. Nobody has died till date. But the
So
memory
there is
of
some
it,
on the
Yes.
on the chat which are
Yes.
interesting. Nomophobia, fear of losing cell phone, fear
Oh
of
my.
being submerged in water, and irrational fears, tribophobia, quite a few.
Wonderful. Now I want videos. All of you, please come on. I have a fear of black holes, of getting lost in black holes. So, no, this is a new fear. This is a gift from modernity. If you 20 years back, pre 1997, when people used to travel, they used to have a bag, maybe a credit card, a license, a book. These days, when people travel, they are in perpetual anxiety because they have a laptop and they have a charger. They have 2 mobiles, 2 chargers. They have a hard disk, dongles. So all that time, and then security wala will take it out, everything, right from your belt also. So by the time you cross a security, half the anxiety is to see everything is in place. ये mobile छूट गया कि ये car छूट गया. People keep checking. OCD has increased. Obsessive compulsive disorder has suddenly increased. You know, so this anxiety, the more you have, obviously, the great masters have said this. The more you have, more you tend to fear. But that is not phobias. The phobia is an absolute irrational fear. Even if you anticipate that situation, you will have anxiety. And as a consequence, you start avoiding those situations. So anticipatory anxiety, avoidance behavior, all those formulate. But the source of it is an emotional memory in your head, which gets triggered even by the slightest of cue related to that. So now if you think, what is the brain doing actually? So all the time when we are deciding about something, maybe you have 2 probabilities. Let me take this example from, say, Mahatma Gandhi, because I teach Gandhi and I've worked on his mind. He was a person of huge anger. And all his life, till he became almost 50, 56, the Gandhi which we know, there were episodes of anger outburst. And this would be very foolish to think that he never had any rage or anger or anything. But what was he doing? He was actually minimizing those spikes. And how? Because the anger would rise, as it comes to us also, and it comes to our conscious brain. The probabilities of deciding, sometimes the emotion can take over and you become angry and you express anger. So, rational or emotional? Yeah. Emotional or rational?
Emotional.
Emotional. Okay, will the context decide whether it's rational or not? Okay, let's decide what is rational in first place. We are talking about rational, and what is rational, what is logical, what is emotional? Define the subject matter.
So it appears to me that there is an axiom or an assumption that they are mutually exclusive category, analytical category.
What?
It appears to me that
No.
emotion and reason are
No, that there are no categories. The brain has a bad habit of categorizing. Academicians have more habit of categorizing because that will make more departments. So, no, forget about this categorizing. What is rational in first place? If you don't know rational, we don't know what is rational, forget emotional, we know. We know emotion. We cry, we feel sad, we feel happy, we feel lustful, we do all this stuff. We know emotion very well because there is an experiential thing. Huh?
I think a part of rational decision making also needs to have emotional, because as a human, it is also a necessity for us to satisfy
Yes.
ourselves emotionally.
Yeah, that agreed. But what is rational? But
So
again,
anything that is based on reason, like it has its
oh,
own it has its own value. I think it comes from a very pragmatic approach where it's based on evidence, where it's
Nitya,
based on empiricism, like
Nit,
something which is
oh,
proved.
Nitya,
Sorry.
no,
Yeah.
not so, don't be sorry. You become a professor of philosophy. Socrates बोलता था ऐसे. No, ठीक है, चलो. What you're saying, I'll put it in a simpler way. What you said is absolutely right, है ना? Can irrational be logical?
I think irrationality has its own reasons, so it can be.
That is romanticism. We have to get to this point. If we get to this point, all life will be sorted for you all. Then you can establish me as a guru. Okay. Let's split few things. What is the spelling of rationality?
Rational is the component.
Okay, rational. Split rational. Ratio?
Right.
What is the ratio? 2/3, 1/3, 2/5, 4/5. So if you put all ratios together, you get a unity. Am I right?
Yeah,
Agreed till now?
yeah.
So when you're seeing all ratios, that means you are seeing the full perspective. Anything which is rational has to keep most perspectives in mind. Right? It can still be logical because the logic is a time-bound thing. Logic is a linear thing. Reaching from A to B is catch a train, go, get down. Logical. Right? But if you think that I'll sit on the top of the train and then travel A to B to the same route, rational or irrational? See, that is the problem. You talk about terrorism. What is the problem with terrorism? They are absolutely logical people. They'll come and they want to drop a bomb, kill people, they'll kill it. They do it logically, but it's irrational actually. What they're not seeing the whole perspective. So this debate you can do. Now, brain has to decide first and foremost your security. Second, anticipating the next moment. So if brain decides that this thing is dangerous, it may not be dangerous. But if the brain decides it is dangerous, because there can be one misfire of 10 neurons, and for a non-threatening stimulus, brain suddenly reacts. It will push you into that reflex action. Run away. So fight or flight, you've heard of it, no?
Yeah.
I'm adding 2 more F's. Fright, freeze. Freeze. People freeze. Am I right? And you girls should think about this. Most of the women or girls who receive the abuse for the first time, for some reason, be it a molestation or where they have not responded back, get back to their mind. You know what happened? Nobody can take them over. The problem is freezing. Because the way they have been brought up, their every decision making has been tempered in an average Indian family. Yes, no, come back, don't do this, don't wear this, that, don't wear do that. So by the time they come out in the world and the first assault happens, verbal, physical, whatever, for most girls, it just, and that is enough for the other person to take you over. Now go back. I mean, this is a real situation. Huh? I earn my bread from this. So I know what is happening to somebody who's sitting in front of me. Now, this is an emotional memory or anecdotal memory? For anybody who is more vulnerable,
Both.
not expressive, cannot assert.
It's both actually.
It's both actually. But you would, if I ask you, what exactly had happened which brought you to this state, you will not be able to tell me incidents. The only thing you'll be able to tell me that when it comes to making decision, I cannot, or I get fear of the consequences, right? Or I get uncertain. Now see, the brain process is trying to avoid uncertainty, but your mind's conditioning, neurons are conditioned in such a way that it can't be certain, because that fear of future, which is in all of us. See how many things complicate this decision making. So when you think we are taking actual rational decision, where is the rationality? Because it's already being directed by fear of future, the memory of past, fear of loss and fear of this, fear of that. So it's already your central executive network is burdened with all these things. And then it has two probabilities, whether you want to hate it or you don't want to hate it. Like all of us feel that corruption is bad. But how many of us have really stopped and told a policeman not to do it? You forgot policeman. you get cars with that red light, na? Politicians. Right? I mean, you take your car to the side. Why? You know you're on the right. You're driving correct. So why do you do it? What decision making goes there? Any idea?
Yeah, it's the decision that we won't be able to survive if we actually spoke to a police person like that.
Yeah.
Or we simply don't care. That's another perspective.
So, so either way, by context.
So there is fear basically.
Yes, fear basically. So this is how it complicates now. Fear. But if there is somebody, your hostel boy, who doesn't prepare good tea for you, usko to you will say something. Auto wala ke you will scold, na? Kya bhaiya aise chalata hu? Gadde mein dal diya. You say all this. We all do this. We'll tell our mates and our drivers. But we never walk up to a SSP city and say, shut up. We don't want to do that. That means the emotion, which is the fear, brain calculates that in this context, if you put your head in, this is risky for you. That alters the rationality of the behavior. The rational behavior is that if you believe in truth, if you believe in righteousness, you should stop. But the fear alters the rationality. And then after the event, when we are asked, we'll give good stories. No, why, who wants this and that. So it is so complex. And then brain has this bad habit of choosing between probabilities. I'll tell you a story. Mahatma Gandhi was hit by a man in South Africa very badly. He would have died. But Gandhi never went back and complained against that person. So when later on this guy came, his name was Mir Alam, and he said, sorry and this and that. So Gandhi said, no, don't be sorry. I didn't want to complain. I didn't complain against you anyways. My worry was that when you were hitting me, at that moment, I should not hate you. This is what he was practicing all the time. So I'm not saying we become Gandhi or something. But that whole choice of taking a decision with a perspective vis-a-vis getting emotional. Okay, you young people, tell me, when was the last time you got angry at home? And don't tell me you all don't do, huh? Married people can recount thousands of moments. Husband and wife can fight over putting off the switch. Who will put you nearer to the gate? And yesterday I had done that. And they will take it to Indo-Pak problem also. Yeah, marriages are so good now. Husband and wife, after 5 years, they'll become a fight of who will put off the light switch. And that problem will escalate to United Nations, to India-Pakistan problem. And then next morning again, they will get into the same rut. Oh, forget that. But you all of us young people become very impatient with our parents, all of us. You were there saying something, you're not listening. Okay, if they're saying something, what is the most rational thing? Tell me. What?
To probably reason it out with them or try to see their perspective.
But when you were a kid, you were taught that you should listen to your parents. They are your best caretakers. They are the people who will care about you most, isn't it? Yeah, and then you want to reason. Absolutely. And then you grow up, you want to reason with them. So do you think they are not deciding it reasonably? Or our reason is better than their reason?
It's
Then
just the context, I believe. That's different.
Context, perspective. So think, this magic called brain is so wonderful. Even before you can decide, it has already taken a lot of context, perspectives, everything into account, and taken a decision whether it's you're allowed to have emotions or you're not allowed to have emotions. Agreed? Now keep this in mind. Now you can understand what mental issues are. Whom do you call mentally unhealthy or psychiatrically ill patient? Who are the people? You all read in psychology, na? Emotional dysregulation and right. We all are emotionally dysregulated, but our brain is okay. So it doesn't allow us to be reckless in the wrong context. Right?
Mentally, when they could cause danger to themselves or others.
Others, right.
Or they're considered deviant.
And
Threshold.
Who decides deviant?
Majority.
Society? Majority, yes, Likita. You're absolutely right. Majority. So that means what is abnormal in 2022 may not be abnormal in 3022. Right? It was not abnormal. So in 1900, it was not abnormal. It has become abnormal now. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. So a lot of these definitions by which we work are a matter of statistics, that whole range of normal to abnormal. And this is what we are also fighting amongst ourselves, the psychiatrists and all that all of us can have a little bit of problem. So it is mental abnormalcy. Is it a continuum that from 0 to 100 everybody fits in somewhere? Or it is categorical, that a schizophrenic mind is different, autistic mind is different? Because everybody has its mental state. A schizophrenia person with schizophrenia has its mental state. Who are we to tell him that it's normal or abnormal? But there are certain parameters to run the society, right? Okay, can any of you tell me if a person is aggressive? How will you decide whether the person is to go to mental health facility or to legal issues? How do you decide? Hey, all people, please open your videos, man. Where are you shy of? Huh? Law or psychiatry hospital?
should be taken into consideration for medical attention when it is harming themselves or others. Other than that,
What?
I think acceptance should be there.
So we take whole of Putin's army to psychiatry hospital. Should we?
Maybe, yeah.
Terrorists, should we take them to mental hospital or to law?
There's got to be some correction in their cognition and the way they think.
Who will do it? No. So law or mental health have been two ways for societies to handle deviation. But they are simply based on one single word. I showed you when my brother and me were there, Monkey and me. Intent. If you do it with intent, it falls into law. And that is why a lot of murderers, suddenly when they have no excuse, alibi to get out, they will put a plea for insanity. Insanity was the old word for mental illness. Now we don't use it in New Mental Health Act. So they say this is mentally unstable. There was no intent. Right? But this is a very, very difficult thing. Very difficult things. Because, I mean, there are jokes around it actually. When I was in Nimans, we used to have a closed ward. We still have it. And there was a clause in old Mental Health Act that a person can be put involuntarily into mental health facility because it dangers to self or other. So we put in treat for 3 months. After 3 months, we take the person to the judge, and judge will again ask, okay, doc, you're sure he'll not do it again? Or who can be sure? So once I was a senior resident, I had to go. There was this magistrate. I said, boss, I'm not sure about myself that if I'm standing on the MG road and I'll do some violence or not. How can I? He said, don't worry, then take him. Bring him when you are sure. So the person would have gotten out of the jail in 1 year. He stays for 3 years in psychiatry hospital. So nobody can say whether he'll do it in future or not. So now what is happening is something new. Because there's a lot of imaging and all these things have come that this area of brain is activated when you're doing this area of brain. So now they want to do neuroscience by law by neuroscience. That will create another set of problem. You will say, no, this area is activated. Now, what activated means what? You are seeing activation at 200 milliseconds. The decision is being made at 500 milliseconds. Who will decide what was happening then? So this is the type of mess we are getting into. And result of this is, we don't know who is normal and who is not. Because life's problem, the stressors have gone so much, and the anxiety sometimes people bring in almost appears as abnormal. So anxiety, do you know something called Yerkes-Dodson curve? Any of you? Have you read it? Okay, anybody can tell me what is the relationship of anxiety with performance?
Some amount of anxiety is required for a person to perform, but too much anxiety can cause performance failure.
So it's an inverted U. A little bit of anxiety, your performance improves. Anxiety plateaus, you can still stay there. Anxiety goes up, your performance comes down. So to study well before exam is good. You'll perform better. But first 2 questions in the question paper which you don't know, you're down. The anxiety will shoot up. And that is performance anxiety. What else? And that is where I was talking about language. You keep creating this type of pressures. Doing this. So when it really comes to it, understand that the brain is working as a whole. Most of it is unconscious, out of awareness rather, not unconscious. It processes information, memory, lays it with emotions, present it with to a frame of reality. If in cooler times, you can take this frame of realities and create a story. Sometimes when the brain perceives something as a threat, it will fire more. It can create rage, lust, all that stuff. Now it still remains to for us to decide what do we want to do. Let me put it in a different way. I was talking to a big time filmmaker. I'll not name him. They are my friends. And we had a small debate. This was after this horrendous Nirbhaya case. We all are aware of Nirbhaya case, isn't it? Nothing stopped, nothing changed. Because after Nirbhaya, it has not stopped. I was telling him that in simpler days, all these rapes used to happen. That is a perversion, absurdity of the society, which we need to correct in different ways. But I said, the type of cinema you guys are making. He said, no, cinema can't affect it. So I said, I'm not saying cinema can affect it, but the imagery which comes to your head, that imagery gets into your subconscious mind. You're not even aware of it. Like you're not aware of what advertisements are doing to you. But you heard a word called Colgate, Colgate, Colgate. Next time you go to a shopping mall and you want a toothpaste, you will ask Colgate, who has told you Colgate is good or bad? It's in your head. It's already affected your memory. And brain is experiential. There's something called neuroplasticity. Don't think a memory is a static thing. It has gotten into your head. It will never change. With every experience, that is also changing. You can't trust memory too much. Because telescopes, it creates its own illusion, whole story. Having said this, so anyway, that debate went on. I was telling him because of the imagery, when these guys who were doing whatever nonsense they were doing, the problem is that they had this imagery in their head, and that led to all the violence. So the whole society is so bothered about showing sexual stuff to children, don't show this, don't show that. What they are not thinking that what we are showing more than sexuality is violence. And that violence is affecting the whole mind subtly. So when it really, in peaceful times, you can sit and decide that whether it's rational or irrational or whatever. But when it comes to the field, this whole thing gets too merged up. So that distinction of emotion or rational, I think after some time, yeah, Yasmin, she's asking me something. Unmute her, please. Can I do it?
All of us can do it on their own.
Yeah, Yasmin, you can unmute yourself.
No, I didn't have a question. Did I raise my hand by accident? Sorry.
Okay, don't worry. Good accident. Yeah. So this type of stuff, there are 10 to the power 18 operations happening in your brain. The best of the computers are having 10 to the power 12. Anything can go haywire. So to clearly distinguish, we have broad understanding. Partly it has come from psychology. Let me blame psychology for this. When psychology started 120, 150 years back, people were not so divisive in their head. Then came Dr. Freud, who brought the hydraulic pump theory, that all emotions are suppressed and this and that, will burst out in sleep and do all that. So people got, after Freud's thing was over, came Mr. Skinner. With nothing, it's all reaction and action, and Pavlov and Skinner. So people who were sitting at the edge suddenly thought that let's bring in thought. Cognitive scientists, they have been ruling cognitive behavior therapy, cognitive labs. Now they are realizing that cognition doesn't do anything. So labs have been turned to cognitive affective. Now they're talking about emotions. When you're talking about emotions, they have to talk about body per se. In our great spiritual texts, body was ignored. But when you feel emotional, think you can without affecting your body. Have you experienced this? If you think, you don't need to, your body does not necessarily get affected. But when you are emotional, does your body get the effect? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you are angry, your heart is beating fast.
Yes.
When you are anxious, your mouth is drying. Right? People start having loose motions. All type of symptoms appear because there is a sympathetic and parasympathetic system in the body. Adrenaline and acetylcholine. They all keep the effect. So emotions are the basis of existence. If I give you a chance of living an emotionless life, would you prefer?
No.
Good, wonderful. Some of us have to decide this because otherwise the robots will be like this. That's what we want to make, an emotionless thing. I have, beyond that theory of internal and external thing, I have another thought these days. What we think a thought is, we often think thought is just words. But I think thought is a much larger thing. It has emotions entwined in it. It has your basic instincts like hunger, thirst, this and that. Like if you're thirsty, your thought is about what?
Water.
Not necessarily water, to drink something. Right? So that is an instinctual emotion. So this is the emotion. What is the rational thought about it? What you are going to drink. So you get this instinctual emotion of thirst, which is purely biological thing. If you connect all these dots, you will know. Then it comes to your conscious mind. It's pushing you. Then you want to drink something. Then you choose what you want to drink. Right? So choosing what you want to drink can be a rational decision that you open your fridge and you get Coke or beer or whatever you want to drink. Or if you don't have, if you are standing in the side of the village, even if you get a pond, you will drink water if you're thirsty. If you are standing in a place where the only water is in the pond and you know that you do not have anything, you will drink that. So your mind can take a rational decision by putting things in perspective. But the basic emotion is thirst. So try thinking this ways and don't be afraid that what you're thinking is wrong and right, or nothing wrong and right. Nobody knows the truth still. So maybe you kids will find out something for us. I have this book called Maya is Reality. Get hold of it. If you don't get it, it's on academia.edu. Free download. Ignore the typo errors, but read it. And don't be afraid of its madness. Because sometimes mad things are good. All right, I'll stop here. Tell me more.
So there are some comments that we missed due to neglect. Some wrote, frontal lobe takes over in the final emotional processing.
Also lateral prefrontal cortex.
Yes, another comment like information process. What is the reason or is
what?
Information processed by higher cortical areas for logic. These are some comments which we...
Okay, no, I'll tell you, information processing is happening all the time. And for that, we have to just, if you have heard of Shannon's information theory applies in the brain also. Brain will collect all information all the time, right? If the information is repetitive, higher probability, it's happening more times, it doesn't contain any surprise. It doesn't contain any surprise. Any information which is new contains a surprise. That is important information for the brain, by which it will alter its already existing memory. Because there's a concept in physics called entropy, disorder. With every surprise element, disorder increases. So it keeps increasing from the cellular level till the higher cortex. Okay? Where entropy has to obviously limit itself. So, see, I told you brain is processing information at different levels. The information which goes to the eye is electromagnetic radiation. Here it's a mechanical vibration. Everything turns to electrical firing and chemical control. Okay? So the neurons which are carrying a set of patterns of information, when they mix up with other neurons, bringing in other type of signals, which is again electrochemical, but carrying vision. So information at this level of ear is different from information at the level of thalamus. The level of thalamus is different at the level of cortex. Cortex will inhibit all the states in the probabilities in the brain which are not keeping you in touch with reality. Otherwise, there would be no way of survival. The cortex, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, will suppress all probability states, internal states, emotional states, which will put you in danger. That is the source of problem, what we call mental illness. But we really don't know the causes. If your brain is deciding in a way which is continuously putting you in at odds and risk, that is the problem. So some people have it episodically in bipolar illness. In mania, they will lose touch with reality. And then you look at borderline personality disorder, all the time they are doing this. But the problem is, my dear, that normal, somebody said it is because the majority. So after COVID, like for example, everybody is behaving in the same way. So abnormal is normal. But who says normal is healthy? Who says? Somebody said, Divya is saying justice is revenge taking. Yes, I agree. If Godse would have survived, Gandhi would have forgiven him. He would have gone to the jail, brought Godse out. Maybe they were living together somewhere. Who knows? Right? Godse versus Mahatma, there is a play by Asghar Wajad Saab. Find out and read it. And in fact, Priyanka Gandhi went to the killer of Rajiv Gandhi to forgive him. But that was after she had attended a Buddhist camp. So, yeah, people can change. People can change. So life is dynamic experience, keep changing. There's no absolutes, huh? But we have to tell absolutes, otherwise, who will listen to business? You agree with that, no? Otherwise, some Baba will come, he'll say, I'm enlightened. Some people will go and listen to him, make him 50,000 crore rupees man. Lose their own money to this. Who believes? What is enlightenment? Nobody knows. But because the society has given a certain conceptual understanding of it, that anybody who is enlightened is greater than anybody else. So you all sacrifice for it.
So I just have a
Yes.
response to Divya's
Yes.
question. There's an institute in Germany which does research in inequality and justice. So one of the empirical research says at least half of the upper and middle class subjects vote for unequal distribution. It reflects the potential dilemma that people face when they have to decide between justice and self-interest.
Yeah. The justice, these questions have never been resolved. You have heard of a war called Mahabharata?
Yes.
Heard of it? Lord Krishna? The whole war was for dharma. And what was the dharma which was established after that? Nothing. Nothing. Yudhishthir's rule was the worst rule actually. He himself couldn't handle it. What was Krishna fighting for? He would have also thought actually. Last year I wrote a book on Krishna, which I'll publish it. While I was writing, I was thinking, I mean, nobody thinks about all these things. Gandhi brought the whole country to freedom. So everybody helped in that. But towards the end, what was happening? So I think, Deepak, all these things are just to keep some sense of semblance of order, that society is running well. That is also Maya, actually. Because we decide our own parameters. Some people get together and say, look, you have seen kids, na? They go into imaginary play. You are the king, I am the queen. We used to do it in our childhood. Imaginative plays. Huh? So I think sometimes I want to agree with the guys who are saying we are living in a simulation. We are just living like in a dream of somebody else.
Can I ask a question? It's informed by a philosophical debate. David Hume's famous statement on reason and passion, that we use reason but to justify passions. Ultimately, we are slave to reason, is a slave to passion. And if you see even someone like who wrote Phenomenology of Spirit, he said it is the desire that distinguishes humans from animals. So I just want to ask you.
I like Bernard Shaw's claim on that. He said, I always believe instinct because reason 9 times out of 10 is wrong. Okay. And the only time it is correct, it is important. Yeah, I mean, so people have defined it. Now, let me give you an example. Let me ask people. You heard of Bhagat Singh? You all have heard of Bhagat Singh. Haven't you?
He's a youth icon for many.
Yeah. You heard of Subhash Chandra Bose? We heard of Gandhi. We heard of a lot of other, Nelson Mandela. We heard of Martin Luther. Right. All the whole of communist movement, for that matter. When these people talk, they talk like it's all rational reason and all that. But my contention is that they wouldn't have followed it unless there was a lot of emotion into it. Because when you sacrifice your life or your comforts, dry reason will never allow you to survive that, because it will cause discomfort. So there you have to survive emotionally. So the big trick of, if you look at the people who actually seem to have, they were not the people who suppressed emotion or denied emotion, or they said that this is foolish and all that. They were the people who could harmonize their thought with emotions. Gandhi being one, Buddha had it in him. These Zen monks, you know them. A soldier on the front who has been trained to fire, or normal days they wouldn't fight. Why would they fight? But when it gets triggered, the dry reason would tell them, why are you killing? It is the emotion, the push. So I think human race right now, one, that we think too much that we know. We give too much importance to ourselves. And we think we are evolved. Don't trust it. I think we are still evolving. And our whole brain is, if you record an EEG, it is not synchronized. At a given point of time, even when I'm talking to you, the brain, the modular areas will be working differently. But somehow that sense of unity is prevailed because of that pattern of self which memory has built up. So we still, most of the time we survive and we thrive into all this. Whether we are, so I think I can put it in a different word, which brain does not take the ideal decision. It always takes the best decision. So if best and ideal go together, wonderful, happy. If they don't go, then later on you can keep justifying your best decisions. And then that brings in the change. Then you bring in ideology and this was the best decision according to my ideology. So
I haven't completed my question. Sorry, I was about to ask if formation of desires is something that I'm interested in, and reason and emotion both have role to play.
Yes,
Do you think a peaceful society would encourage desire formation informed by reason than emotion?
There will never be a peaceful society, because the way brain has evolved, it cannot be at peace. Number two, you can bring in ethical issues, regulate the behavior by reason and practice, because then it's an absolutely individual mind which has to keep training. Collective things may control for time being. For the time being, we know societies who have changed and become sacrificing, and in our freedom struggle also we have seen that. The same society was fighting at time of partition. Same people. So external ethical rational ideology in presence of a charismatic leader can change. But again, it is a time limited thing, because people will keep bouncing back, because the brain is still it will desire. It will there is now, for example, sexuality. Whatever you do, people have been telling hazar things, but when there is a age when hormonal set is there, girls and boys will get attracted to each other. Always. Males will get attracted to female, whatever they say. Whatever they say, they are speaking a lie if they are saying this. The question is whether these males or females can train their mind towards decency, towards consent, towards respect towards each other. So when we talk of respect and tolerance, I'm sure, Deepak, you must be knowing they're not the same words. Huh? Is there a difference between them? Yes or no?
Certainly, there is a difference.
Yeah. So what is the difference?
Tolerance is a passive thing.
Okay, let me give you another definition. The definition of secular in olden times was that I'll respect you, respect your religion. Tolerance says that, see, I'm better than you, but I'll still tolerate you. Whatever you are, I'll tolerate. Respect is that we both exist on an equal thing.
So there is an element of condescension in tolerance?
Oh, absolutely. Not an element. It is that.
It is condescension. Okay.
Yes. I say I tolerate you means I've already established कि हम हैं तुम कुछ नहीं. I'm superior, I will tolerate you, but still because of X, Y, Z. Respect is that me and you coexist. Maybe someday we'll find a midway, someday we'll not. It's all right. Let's accept our existence. So I don't intrude onto your life and your dignity and your entity per se. Now, these type of stuff has confused the whole thing. He is a very tolerant person. What does it mean he's a tolerant person? What? People will say, no, he's so tolerant. Look at it deeper, because we are all scientists. We have still not gotten out of that, what we used to call tribal psyche. What are we working on? We are working on power dynamics. And power dynamics will either elevate you when you are up or suppress you. That is an emotion. We justify with words and theories and all that. But look everywhere around us. We are just looking for gods at all levels. We need somebody to whom we can. So what do you think? People who do this will have their own share of repressions and suppressions and all. The problem with brain is What you do not have a control over brain is that if you suppress something, or if you put some data, some emotion on the side because of the context, it will extract its price at a later date. It is going to happen someday when you will be least expecting, and that is why people get surprised. How did I behave like this? I was never like this. Never like this means the whole thing was lurking in your head from ages. That is why. So see, when will it change? Is there a way of changing it? Anybody? I'll tell you, we cannot change. We are all incorrigibles. Only way to change is teach kids. Teach kids. Train them to harmonize. There is a big talk of social emotional learning, right? But I think they're all partly misdirected, because again, for them, because nothing else is working, try this. That basic stuff has to be worked on. I mean, you guys should work on that. I'm there to help you out. All right. Anything else? We'll keep talking. I'll leave my number. If you want to call,
Sure.
can down.
I'll share it with the students and faculty.
I'll write it in the chat. Please read it. And please feel free to WhatsApp me. Okay. Anything else?
I don't see any comments or any hands rising. So
keep thinking. The whole purpose of these talks is to destroy your sleep. If you sleep well, then you have not paid attention. All right.
If there is no further questions, I can call Professor. There's one last question from Likita Madan. What would you say about the physics of the brain?
Likita, come on the video. Go and download my book. I'll suggest you two things. There is a 10-hour course.
Yeah, they're asking for contact details.
Contact details I've already put in. It's 98390
98390
27
402.
Likita, are you here? Is she hearing?
She's traveling, I guess.
Okay, don't worry. There is a 10-hour course called How the Brain Creates Mind on YouTube and NPTEL. Okay, just go through it and download this book, Maya is Reality, because the later part of the book is about the physics of brain, right from quantum to nonlinear dynamics to chaos to all this. And then maybe message it, yes, and we will chat on this. All right.
Yes. Probably one last question from Divya Bhatnahar.
Tell me. Yeah, Divya.
So actually, I also have to leave in 1 minute. So I know it's not going to be a quick answer, but like I was talking about justice being mainly revenge seeking. So if I want, like, if we want to change systems like this, should we first appeal to the emotions of the people or change the system? Because most people are satisfied with revenge.
Emotion. Because if you change the system, people are into the same animal mode. Don't worry. Don't get too happy about people. Unless they learn to see, we at one level, we all want to be the, again I said it is a tribal thing. right? Basic instinct is this. I wrote a paper, actually, it's called Is Non-Violence the Next Evolutionary Step? That is also on academia.edu. You send me your email and all that, I'll send you these things. I have talked about this. After this, only non-violence is left now. You have to burn out all these things. When the society will change, then these systems will change. Because otherwise, if you change the system, there'll be 10 people who will be following, 20 will not be following, they'll be getting angry. When they'll get a chance, they'll put their system. So it's a man against man war, actually. And who are these people who want revenge? All these people are actually, they are not harmonized within themselves. There was a Greek philosopher, Diogenes. When he gets to this physician called Hippocrates, we take this Hippocratic oath, na? Doctors, the Hippocrates, you are too healthy because you don't have a guilt and regret and no animosity. It's all happy. People, see, these tricks are minor tricks. Some other day we'll talk, because these days I'm working on this stuff only. And when I'm working on this, I'm rejecting a lot of the nonsense which even I have worked on. It's not going to give any answers. We have to extract stuff from some people. But the problem is that these days when we talk about.
Sir, I shared the academia non-violence paper in the chat for Divya.
So when I talk about this, when I talk about people will go to ancient knowledge. That's all right. But the problem is how many of us really know that real knowledge. We are lost in words and shlokas and mantras and rituals and all that. So everybody will absorb that and they'll start ranting like anything. When you say a Gita can change life, Gita can really change life. But who knows Gita in first place? Who knows Krishna to know Gita in first place? Who knows Buddha to know Buddhism in first place? Who knows Gandhi to know? Because this knowledge is pain. This knowledge comes with a lot of pain. And trust me, people are not ready to go through pain.
Then how are we going to change, like the society that you're talking about?
Yes. If out of 10 of us, 3 change, it's done. You want to change? Okay, I'll change you. Vivekananda went to Ramkrishna Paramahansa. Have you seen? He went to Rabindranath Tagore's father first. Swam in Ganga, 10 o'clock in the night. Rabindranath Tagore. He said, have you seen God? He said, Baitho batata ho. He said, no, have you seen God? He couldn't say yes or no. Vivekananda jumped in the river, swam back in the night. After some days, he goes to Ramkrishna Paramahansa. Asked same question. He said, forget it whether I have seen. You want to see it? See, all changes have to come individually. The models can be same. Sometimes in presence of a great person, a lot of people can change. In presence of Gandhi, a lot of people changed. But as Gandhi went away, some of them remained like that. Some of them went back. So change will keep happening. There is no static change. What is a static change? Nothing, no. So we do whatever we have to. We'll discuss more. Don't worry. We'll catch up somewhere.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
I think this good note, non-violence, the next evolutionary step. We would like to close this, and I call upon Professor Sudarshan to give the vote of thanks. And I will share Dr. Alok Bajpai's email and phone number to the larger community.
Yes, please. Yes. Email ID is alokbajp@gmail. Simple.
Thank you, Professor Deepak, for giving me the opportunity to offer a vote of thanks on behalf of Jindal School of Psychology and Counseling. Good evening to one and all present here, Professor Alok Bajpai, the guest speaker, the faculty colleagues and students. Thank you, Dr. Bajpai, for accepting our invitation. Listening to your perspective shaped by long years of practice and learning was really encouraging, and I'm sure it has given a lot of order to think about mental health, mind, brain, behavior, and relationships among these concepts. I would like to thank all the participants, faculty colleagues, as well as students for joining this evening and for your active participation. I extend my gratitude to the organizing committee, the research and exchange committee, consisting of Dr. Kanika Malik, Associate Dean Research, Dr. Amanpreet Kaur and Dr. Deepak for their synergy in planning and coordinating this event. I would also like to thank Professor Derek Hall, linguist, the Dean, Jindal School of Psychology and Counseling, for providing this opportunity. Faculty colleagues are remembered for all their help. The Media and Publicity Committee has helped us in publicizing this event. Thank you so much. Last but not the least, thanks are due to OP Jindal Global University logistics support teams who have worked diligently behind the scenes in materializing this event. In this regard, Mr. Ashim Roy and Ms. Alisha Sidhwani, program managers at Jindal School of Psychology and Counseling, Mr. Sunil, involved in poster creation, and the IT support team are remembered with utmost gratitude. Thank you all. Thank you all once again.
Deepak, are you going to put this on YouTube?
Yes, we would like to put it on YouTube. If you
no, agreed, man. Send me the link, but
sure, definitely, I'll share it with you. AVT can stop recording. We can actually share this as soon as it is ready. I get over the link. I'll share it with you.
Right.